Hello and welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Inceptive and I'm here to talk about anything pop culture news. Today I'm talking about the PS5, specifically the digital edition, and just how much cheaper it could be than the version with the 4K disc drive that the standard edition has. It's no surprise to me that Sony announced that they're having a digital edition of the PS5. It makes a lot of sense for them. When people buy games digitally instead of physically, Sony ends up making a lot more money because there's no middleman. They don't have to make the discs, the case, all those companies that make all that stuff, and then companies like Walmart, Target, Best Buy, wherever you buy your games, it's just completely cutting out the middlemen, and Sony and the developers and publishers end up making a lot more money off of that than they otherwise would. But just how much cheaper can we expect the digital edition to be, considering they're removing that 4K disc drive that can play your games? You can buy physical games, as well as being able to play 4K Blu-rays, regular Blu-rays, and DVDs. This article comes from Push Square, which is a website dedicated to PlayStation, just everything PlayStation. So I'm assuming they know what they're talking about when it comes to the PS5. It says, "We don't know how much the PS5 will cost, but boss Jim Ryan appears to be buttering fans up ahead of a high price point. The executive recently talked about how it's emphasizing value with its next-gen system, which is a gigantic red flag if we've ever seen one." I would agree with that. The fact that they haven't announced the price by now, and the console's probably coming out in November. Correct me if I'm wrong, but the PS4 and Xbox One had already announced the prices right now. Everyone knew the Xbox One was going to be $100 cheaper, and that was a huge problem for it, in my opinion, and a huge part of the reason why it hasn't sold nearly as well as the PS4 has. And it goes on to talk about how much Sony would make off of people buying digital games instead of physical ones. It says 8 additional revenue per digital game sale is how much Sony would make, and that's a lot to them. That's about 1/7 of how much a game costs, like at about $60. That's a lot of money that they're taking instead of Walmart, Amazon, and whoever else getting that money. And it makes sense to me why Sony is doing this. It says it seems feasible that a PS5 console with 4 digital sales could realistically break even with a price 0.50 less than its disc-based alternative. There's also the absence of used games to consider, which potentially puts more dollars directly into Sony's pocket. And that's a big part to consider as well. Say goodbye to buying used games and getting games cheap if you don't have a physical disc drive, because I know the digital, there's a lot of digital sales going on, but I still think you can get games a lot cheaper from GameStop, because GameStop buys stuff off people really cheap so that they can sell them to you for less. I know I hate basically giving anything to GameStop because they give you pennies on the dollar for what you give to them. I think used games are a huge thing to consider when if this is true and it's only going to be $50 less for the discless version of the PS5. That just doesn't make sense financially to me, considering what you get with the disc drive. With the disc drive, you get the ability to buy used games and buy physical games, period. And you have the ability to play 4K Blu-rays, regular Blu-rays, and DVDs. I know things are trending digitally. Most people are streaming their stuff nowadays, but I know a lot of people that still have DVDs and Blu-rays at their house. I'm one of those people. I still have DVDs and Blu-rays that I like to watch sometimes, and I don't really want to get rid of those. I know you wouldn't have to get rid of those if you didn't have the PS5 with the disc drive, but it would just be another thing that you'd have to have on your center console there. It wouldn't look as clean with just the PS5 sitting on it. Just for fun, I'm gonna go on Walmart and see how much a 4K disc drive costs by itself. If you're not gonna have the one in the PS5 and you still want to play 4K Blu-rays, Alright, I'm here on Walmart. It says I'm actually going to have to place it in my cart to see how much it costs because they're selling it for less than Sony recommended them to. And so the 4K disc drive by itself, Walmart is selling for $180 at the time of me recording this video. So you save $50 by not having it, but if you want it by itself, it's $180. At that price point, I think it just makes sense. It doesn't make sense to buy the digital version of the PS5 for $50 less. I think at $100 more, I would have to consider it if it was like $400 and $500. But for 450 and 500 or something like that, I just spend the extra 50 and get the disc drive myself, so that I don't have to keep a Blu-ray player or my PS4 sitting on my center console and taking up space. But that's just my opinion on that. I think a 4K Blu-ray player actually brings a ton of value to the table. Being able to play those 4Ks, that crisp quality, the highest quality you can get right now. I know they're trying to make 8K a thing, but I feel like people are still adopting 4K. I was just at Target the other day, just looking at DVDs and stuff because I was bored, and they have all six of the Star Wars movies there in 4K. Of course, I'm talking about the six Star Wars movies that matter here, not the Disney stuff, but that's a video for another time. And those 4K versions of Star Wars cost $30 a piece. You could get all six of the Star Wars movies for $180. The same amount of money you'd have to spend on a 4K Blu-ray player if you didn't have the one in the PS5, assuming you don't already have one. I certainly don't. I think $180 is pretty steep for a Blu-ray player, but that's just my opinion. I definitely would not be picking up the digital edition of the PS5 for $50 cheaper, but I'd love to hear what you guys think in the comments down below. Thank you for watching. I will be back in the future with more videos, and have a good day.